Okay, I'm very excited to be here and talk about my experience with ISI. As you probably have already heard, ISI is a study abroad program for international students, mainly American students, who come here as undergraduate and they study with us for a semester. So we are talking about students who are between 19 and 21 years old. So my name is Serena Giorgi, and I'm the coordinator of community engagement at ISI Florence. I work with students to organize volunteer activities and field experiences connected to practicum courses. ISI offers many opportunities for experiential learning, including a practicum in disability studies that connects students directly with the community because it's a hands-on experience. Over the years, I've had the privilege of building strong relationship with associations that employ adults and young adults with cognitive intellectual disabilities, as well as with centers where participants engage in many different kinds of tasks. These places are not just work or activity centers. They are environments designed to enhance individual abilities, to encourage socialization, and support personal growth. What I deeply value about these organizations is their focus on education through interaction, how to relate to others, how to collaborate, how to be present in a community, because ability is not treated as something fixed, but something that can grow when the environment allows it to. The students, our students, ISS students, complete the required number of field experience connected to the classes in these associations that are selected. One important aspect of this experience is minimal supervision by me. I try to give them as minimum supervision as possible. This might sound risky first, but in reality, it's a great strength because when supervision is limited, students learn to teach themselves through practice. They learn how to transfer skills from one environment to another, even very small skills, which often turn out to be the most meaningful. And I always say that a student truly succeeds when without strong expectations, and that's the key because sometimes they think that they are going to change the world, but anyways. So when a student truly succeeds when they move into a position of humility, when they shift from I'm here to help you to I need you more than you need me. Let me give you an example from a student who told me that her experience changed when she reversed the relationship within the association. In fact, one of the members was deaf and communicated using sign language. The student did not know sign language. So she said, "You speak sign language. I don't. Please teach me." When we reverse the relationship in this way, something powerful happens because I'm no longer imposing my vision or my methods or my solutions. Instead, I ask, I observe, and I learn. And from there, I can support and enhance skills rather than trying to fix a gap that I think I see. This is what empowerment looks like. And as educators, our role is not to dominate the process, but to create the conditions for growth for both our students and the people they meet. When everyone involved is learning, that is where real success begins. I usually use the word reciprocity. I like that the students believe in reciprocity. They get as much as they give and they learn if the people they interact with learn as well. I would like now to share a reflection from a lady called Lucia. And Lucia is a member at LINA. And LINA is a daycare center where people with cognitive intellectual disabilities spend their day supported by dedicated professional staff that encourage learning, independence, and personal growth. This Linar Center is the center where our former students, Katie Shula, that we were mentioning before, and whose video I'm going to show you now shortly, she completed her field experience in this center. So this guest, this person, this participant in the center said, first of all, it should be said that for several years now, Linar has been welcoming students from all over the world. And it's a wonderful thing because for us to meet new people is fabulous. It helps us and it's good for us. Plus, we hope we can give something in exchange too. It's a great thing to collaborate with them who come from the United States. For me, I may not understand them very well, but I want to learn English, their language, and I want to learn Spanish, German, and I want to learn Indian. So sometimes the students say, oh, there is a language barrier. Even when the verbal communication is not perfect, the desire to learn is still there. This lady, Lucia, wants to learn English, Spanish, German, and even Indian. The curiosity, this openness, reminds us that inclusion is not charity, but it's exchange. Inclusion works when we encourage that everyone brings knowledge, culture, skills, and curiosity to the table. When we stop asking, how can I help you, and start asking, what can I learn from you? That to me is the heart of community engagement and the foundation of meaningful work in the field of disability. Thank you. And now we see the video from Katie, our former students. Ma quello non funziona in due
We
sistemi.
have to distribute also the translation of that video
Perché uno è
about the
in
Italian to the channel.
come funziona. Solo quell'altro.
Astia.
Sono due third
Ce l'hai sulla chiavetta? Sì, ma prima funziona.
Prima funzionava.
Sì. Ma c'è il resto? E come sono gli studi? State finendo, giuro. Non so se prima di pranzo l'abbiamo fatto. Prova a scaricare.
Oh, strano,
Oh, ma guarda che non ci sia qualcosa di scorretto. Dovresti fare? No, ma
Abbiamo già visto il funziona.
sì, funzionava prima di pranzo. No, ma non è.
No, no, è online.
No. È il da disco che non va.
Cioè online proprio, nel senso.
Cioè, la chiavetta? Non è che
Sono da Google Chrome non lo cosa. Scarichi comunque. Facciamo partire da là. Vabbè, per un attimo tanto.
Magari potete parlare.
No, è perché parlo del video.
But it's downloading it fast anyway.
Yeah,
So-
I think it's
And
already
it's not a
done.
long video, it's only 8 minutes, and actually there are no other images except just Katie talking.
Yeah.
Sì.
C'è qualcosa sulla rete.
No, però no, questo. Ah, tu dici.
È andato? Sì. Dai.
There we go.
Forse non è pronto.
No, no,
Sì.
no, no, sta andando, sta andando. Non ora. No.
No.
Fermalo, fermalo.
We don't have much.
Prova di nuovo dal coso. No. Dal disco.
It depends
Prova
on the
quell'altro,
text.
sì.
Very fast.
Ok. Eh oui, Philippe, dans ce métier, il faut être polyvalent. Ouais. Et alors, qu'est-ce que ça a été ta meilleure expérience en tant que diplomate? Le plus beau moment de ta carrière?
Video class.
Sì.
Ammetti Irene.
Sì, sì. Qual è il lavoro?
I don't know slides or videos. Okay. I'd like to thank Magdalena Peci. Anyway, I'd like to talk to Serena's and Stefano's and many people here. Isabella did such a great job with all the translations. I didn't even realize she was working so diligently behind the scenes. Lily, thank you. Especially I'd like to thank Katie Chula for Chile, of course, for her very thoughtful intervention and insight. She reminds us of the recurring theme throughout today of connection and how that is the first step in overcoming differences and barriers. In my role as the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Access Officer at ISI Florence, I work to ensure that all our study abroad students feel safe, supported, and included, regardless of their intersectional identities and abilities. However, Katie's observations about breaking down the barriers of communication bring me back to a past life, a past career that I had in design and communications, which is my specialty, when I used to teach a course in visual literacy at a higher education institute. To get students thinking about the various ways people process information, I had them describe their walk from their apartment to the school in 3 different ways, from point A to point B. The first and most obvious was the usual walk down such and such a street, turn left at Main Street. When you get to number 5, you've arrived. Basic verbal instructions, which are the standard for most communication. I then had them describe the walk using only visual tools, pictures, drawings, landmarks, shops, signs, etc. No verbal instruction or names of streets were allowed. The third description was to explain their walk without resorting to any verbal or visual tools, only smells, sounds, emotions, touch, etc. You couldn't say turn left at the McDonald's, but rather, when the air fills with the smell of French fries and it takes you back to your childhood when your mother didn't allow you any junk food, turn towards the sound of the ringing church bells. Or when the texture of the warm bricks turns to cold glass, you've arrived at the door. While this method was a bit more poetic, this is actually how many neurodivergent people might process their surroundings. This exercise was to get them to think about inclusive communication and be aware that not everyone processes information the same way. The disability practicum that my colleague Serena and Giorgi developed and illustrated previously also reminded me of some of the fundamental aspects of situation design. Usually when we think of situation design, we imagine scenarios like IKEA, with their purposely elaborate labyrinths that prey on human impulses in order to sell you more stuff. But in the practicum's case, the situation design of combining a young study abroad student completely out of her comfort zone and with limited local language skills, with a group of others impacted by disabilities, led to a deeper human connection that went beyond just words, basically designing for a more inclusive society. In conclusion, when I think of the education field as a designer, I'm always questioning how the act of teaching can be designed to be more inclusive and take into consideration how information is processed and how knowledge is assessed. The current trend of academic accommodations like extra time or isolated exam spaces brings to mind another aspect of my field, remedial design. Remedial design is when you have to invent an add-on or a completely new object just to make up for a design failure or shortcoming of the original project. For example, not to pick on IKEA again, but IKEA sells a vast range of plastic storage boxes with lids. Next to these boxes is a bin full of little plastic clips for another €2 that serve to keep the lids in place. Great, problem solved. But why couldn't they have just designed a better lid in the first place, or even a better box? The same applies to education. Why give more time instead of just reinventing better exam methods that assess knowledge and understanding in a more inclusive way? Are time constraints or extensions inclusive and equitable, or just another barrier? I believe the answers to the many experts here today. I only hope the lens of design can be another tool in the room as you shape what comes next. Because when design and pedagogy start asking questions together, that's when real inclusion becomes possible. Thank you.
I would like to take advantage of your presence here because I hardly ever see you, right? So like not long time no see, and especially to see if there are any questions. And Kate's message reminded me of something that whoever volunteers or whoever has ever volunteered knows full well that at the end of the day, what you receive, what you get back is much more than what you give. I mean, just the gratifying feeling of having met people, of being part of a community, of a society, of a network. It's really what makes us feel like truly human beings, right? Because living alone independently is something that in the end tends to become dehumanizing, no matter how fascinating our activity can be that we focus on, but still we all need human contact and human touch. I would like to see whether there are any questions on this video that we saw by Katie Chula and also the comments by Nina and Serena, or maybe any other questions or comments on the previous pre-recorded messages and the previous talks, the ones that we had this afternoon. One thing I would like to say is that there are about 150 American study abroad programs in Italy, and most of them are gathered under the aegis of ANCUP, that stands for Association of American College and University Programs in Italy. There is a sort of tendency, I wouldn't really call it a myth, but a kind of shared belief about American universities that is usually quite negative and derogatory. And usually the US students make the news only because they disturb the peace at night, or maybe because they committed some crime, like just disturbing the peace at night or something like that is. Well, if I may indulge in my love of history for a while, Saint Augustine, around 378, complained that his rhetoric students in Carthage were often drunk, late for class, and rowdy. Petrarch in Avignon, around 1345, complains about university students disturbing him at night because they were shouting in the streets and they were always drunk, so-called clerici vagantes. Students or students, as the Latin verb studere means, they are filled with desire, because studere doesn't only mean to study, it also means to have desire, to long for something, including company, of course, and some fun. But there are many other things that students in general do, and that hardly ever makes the news. A lot of our students volunteer. They devote a lot of time and attention to the local community. That feeling, that cycle, so to speak, of reciprocity that Serena was mentioning a few minutes ago, really becomes their essence of their study abroad experience, which is not just going to class, but it's really giving back to the community, to create a community that metaphorically goes on for their whole lives, because it's a life-changing experience, of course. 10 years ago, we did a festival, the Tuscan American Festival, where we tried to bring to the fore a number of these volunteer activities. If we launch that festival again today, 10 years later, it would probably take not 3 or 4 days, but probably 3 or 4 weeks, because of the number of new initiatives and volunteer opportunities that US students are engaged in. And I'm speaking of Florence, where on average every year there are almost I would say 15,000, maybe 18,000 US students. So you can imagine the impact that they have on the local economy, on the social dynamics, but also how much good they can do, and they do really do. That is, they really make a huge contribution to Florence. And we noticed that when they were not here. During COVID, the city was empty, and the locals, people like 3 of us, were here in lockdown, of course, But of course, everyone missed a number of things and people, including tourists. But everyone agreed that the lack, the absence of students, especially international students, was particularly felt. And speaking of taking opportunities, I think we missed personally a great opportunity with COVID, especially right after COVID. That could have been another sea change in terms of changing paradigms, but it's not too late. We don't have to wait for another pandemic to change our habits, to change how we approach people, to change expectations and values. I don't know whether you want to share some updates and information on new volunteer opportunities, new internships that we have now that we didn't have 10 years ago, or maybe some changes, some new trends. Maybe there are some sectors, some speakers, some context that are now more attractive to students who want to volunteer than they were 10 years ago.
Well, this year I've started two volunteer activities. One is reading novels in the local libraries. So Italian kids 3 to 8 can be exposed to a reading in English. And another one that I care a lot about is by an association called Sheep. And they do crocheting. But the good thing is that they do it for a good cause, which is to make blankets for the homeless. And what I like is the idea that each single square is nothing. It makes sense only when they are sewed and linked one to the other. So each student will do just a little piece, and each piece will be different one from the other, because some students know already how to crochet, other students have no idea how to do it, and they learn on the spot. So one that is nicer, one that is well done, one next to the other, make the whole cover, the whole blanket. So not only they have fun because it's very relaxing, but more than that, I try to tell them and to make them remember that each of them is no one. And each individual effort is nothing if you don't put them together. Or it's a small piece. I don't want to say nothing. It's a small piece, but it makes sense when it's all together.
Any other comments, either from the floor here or from our virtual platform? Because if not, before thanking you once again for being here today, I would like to turn the floor over to Athina Kritikou and Spiro Polkas for some last remarks. Because one thing that I usually find rather sad about meetings and conferences that there is this notion, well, everything is ephemeral, of course, in life, and life is brief and fleeting, et cetera. But I would like to see these events as a starting point, not as a standalone thing that we did it, or right now we part ways and goodbye. Maybe I'll meet you on vacation 5 years down the line, because this could be the beginning of a series of events, right, with a number of iterations, not necessarily in Florence, not necessarily in Italy. Please, Spiro and Athina.
Okay, it's important. Stefano, when I told you the title, Open Minds, Open Doors, well, I had an idea. You can imagine open minds, open doors. The open doors was very interesting for me. So, of course, today is not the ending. I hope it is the beginning. To me, for example, this Dynamo camp and the availability for me, it's very important. And I know with which foundation or NGO she's working with, and we are working with too. So I'll try the funny thing, the interesting thing now is that after tonight, I will think of other connections, because one connection brings the other connection and it's a link. And if you want to change things, you cannot build the house if you don't have the foundations. So now let's do it slowly, lay the foundations. But I think we will find common grounds. It won't come tomorrow morning. I have already two ideas. It can be, I would like to do something again here in Florence because I like the city and I would like to go back. But of course, you're invited in Athens, so we can do terrific things in Athens too, and somewhere else too. But yes, I see it as a beginning. And thank you very much because Spiro had the idea of Florence. Then you really, when I said thank you for sharing the vision, Stefan could say, look, very interesting your ideas, but I was not interested here, it's doing it here. So thank you very much. Really, thank you very much. Thank you all of you, because it's very nice to meet people and to exchange ideas. We're not so different. We think we're different, but we're not so different. And Marco, next time I think we will do tremendous things, much more.
Sure.
We will find the other solutions to be much more effective.
Yes.
Yes. And thank you very, very much. I don't feel you have certain things to add.
Just a few things. The first one that I really keep from this conference is what the video from the deaf group.
The silence
The
of the
silence.
video.
The silence, but at the same time, their insistence that we want to move to the leadership beyond inclusion, their words, not mine words. Okay, so for me, this is very important because I come back again to my introductory thoughts. The whole experience today, that of course should be a beginning, is about the importance of the independent sector. And after that came the experience of Dynamo. Come and say, look, just because we have 1,900 volunteers, we succeed the number of 10 millions. And actually, we hosted 80,000 people. If we miss one number on this line, I'm sure that we didn't understand anything today. Because this line is very important. Volunteers make the funding possible. If you remember the slides of the public sector on the presentation of the Dynamo, it was 2%, 3%. Okay, so we have something that is a successful plan from the practical reality. And I think that if we continue this initiative today and starting to connect and concentrate information from all around Europe, also Maria from Poland gave us many important info about how they work and how much important is the intersectional synergy of different agents. We have to understand that, okay, it's a matter of fact that we need the state, but today we have something new, something that is beyond academia, is beyond the state, is beyond our dependency on the private companies, and starting from the volunteering participation and the whole mobilization of the independent sector for, succeed all these outcomes. So thanks again, Stefano, and all of you about this opportunity to rethink about this. And our values is to stay together and to imagine together. Thanks.
Thank you.
And thank you, Marco, for your patience all those months.
He works with me, so he's well trained. But he has a PhD in patience and resilience because we've been working together for a decade.